Have you ever noticed how something that once brought you comfort, maybe even joy, now feels like just another chore you rush through? Or worse, something you avoid altogether because it stopped working the way it used to? I'm talking about self-pleasure. And if you're over 60, there's a good chance you're approaching it completely wrong without even realizing it. I'm Dr. Charles Bennett, retired urologist with over 40 years devoted exclusively to male sexual wellness in the golden years. And what I'm about to share with you might make you uncomfortable at first, but stay with me, because by the end of this conversation, you're going to understand why so many men your age are quietly suffering, and more importantly, how to turn that around starting today. Here's what nobody tells you: the same approaches that worked when you were 30, 40, even 50, can actually work against you now. Your body has changed. Your nervous system has evolved. Your needs are different. But most men keep doing exactly what they've always done, wondering why satisfaction keeps slipping further away. Before we go any further, let me ask you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications, because what we're discussing today is part of a larger conversation about thriving in your later years, not just surviving them. And if this resonates with you, type a 1 in the comments. If something feels off or you disagree, type 0. I want to know where you stand. Now, let me tell you about two men I met within the same month, both at my clinic's final open house before I retired. George Mitchell walked in first, 67 years old, married 42 years, successful career behind him. But the man sitting across from me looked defeated. He wouldn't make eye contact when I asked about his intimate life. He said everything was fine, but his wife had stopped trying to initiate anything physical months ago. He admitted quietly that even when alone, nothing felt right anymore. "I thought maybe it's just age," he told me. "Maybe this is just how it ends." 2 weeks later, George Patterson came in. Same age, 67. Also married 4 decades. Also retired. But this George was different. He sat forward in his chair. He smiled when talking about his wife. He told me, openly, that the past 2 years had been the most sexually satisfying of his entire life. "I finally figured out what I'd been doing wrong for 50 years, he said. "And Doc, I feel like I'm 25 again, just smarter about it." Same name, same age, same basic life circumstances, completely opposite realities. What made the difference? 7 specific mistakes that George Mitchell was making and George Patterson had learned to correct. And today, I'm going to walk you through every single one of them. But here's the thing. I need you to drop whatever assumptions you're carrying right now. Forget what your father told you. Forget what you heard in locker rooms decades ago. Forget what you think you know about how men are supposed to be. Because most of that information is not just outdated, it's actively harmful. Let's start with the biggest lie still circulating among men your age. George Mitchell told me he'd been practicing what he called conservation. He'd read somewhere online that holding back, not ejaculating, would make him stronger, more focused, more masculine. He'd gone 6 weeks without any release, thinking he was doing something powerful. Instead, he was miserable. He couldn't sleep. He snapped at his grandkids. He felt constant pressure in his pelvis that radiated into his lower back. His doctor had started running tests for prostate issues. This idea, this semen retention myth, it keeps circulating because it sounds profound, ancient, mystical. But here's what actually happens in your body when you're over 60 and you suppress natural release for extended periods. Your prostate doesn't care about mysticism. It needs regular flushing. That's not my opinion. That's physiology. When you hold back for weeks on end, you create congestion, inflammation, discomfort. Studies from institutions like Harvard Medical School have shown that regular ejaculation, particularly in older men, correlates with reduced prostate cancer risk. Not increased. Reduced. Your hormones don't stabilize from abstinence. They fluctuate wildly. Testosterone doesn't steadily climb. It spikes and crashes, leaving you irritable, foggy, emotionally unstable. Your pelvic floor muscles tense up. Blood flow restricts. Everything that needs to move freely doesn't. George Patterson, on the other hand, told me he'd learned to listen to his body. 2, 3 times a week, he said. Whenever I feel the need, I honor it. No shame, no weird rules, just natural rhythm. His prostate health was excellent. His sleep was solid. His mood was steady. The first mistake, believing that withholding somehow makes you more powerful, is actually making you weaker. Real strength is understanding what your body needs and giving it that without guilt or superstition. But even if you're releasing regularly, there's a second mistake that might be sabotaging everything. Think about how you tie your shoes. You don't think about it anymore, right? Your hands just know. Same loop, same pull, same knot. Every single time. Now imagine if that's how you've been approaching self-pleasure for 40 years. George Mitchell described his routine to me with almost painful precision. Same time of night, same position, same grip with his right hand, same pressure, same mental images, same motion. For decades. And it worked, he said, until about 5 years ago. Then it started taking longer. Then it started feeling like work. Now I barely feel anything at all. His body had adapted. His nervous system had become so accustomed to that exact pattern of stimulation that nothing else registered. He'd trained himself into a corner. When he tried being intimate with his wife, his body didn't respond because the sensation was different. Too soft, too unpredictable, too human. This is more common than you'd think. Your nervous system thrives on variety. It needs novelty to stay engaged. When you repeat the exact same stimulation pattern thousands of times, you're essentially teaching your body to ignore anything that doesn't match that precise template. George Patterson figured this out by accident. He'd injured his right shoulder and had to switch hands for a few weeks. It was awkward at first, he told me, but then I started noticing things I hadn't felt in years. Different angles, different pressure points. It was like rediscovering my own body. He started experimenting. Different grips, varying speed. Sometimes fast, sometimes almost unbearably slow. He'd switch positions, use different lubricants with different textures. He wasn't trying to be weird. He was trying to stay engaged, to keep his nervous system responsive. The second mistake is autopilot. Doing the exact same thing, the exact same way, until your body stops responding. Your nervous system needs variety, like your muscles need varied exercise. Without it, everything atrophies. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because most men don't realize they're committing a third mistake that compounds everything else. When George Mitchell was 15, he learned to masturbate quickly. Bathroom door locked, heart pounding. Terrified someone would knock. 3 minutes, maybe 4, and done. He's now 67. Nobody's knocking on his door. He has complete privacy. Yet he still approaches it with that same frantic urgency. I don't know why, he admitted. It's just automatic. Get in, finish, get out. I don't even think about it. That teenage pattern had become so deeply wired that he couldn't imagine any other way. And because of that, he was missing everything good. When you rush, your body doesn't have time to build arousal properly. Your nervous system doesn't fully activate. Your mind doesn't engage. You're basically running on the sexual equivalent of fast food, quick, empty, ultimately unsatisfying. Your body at 67 is capable of pleasure that your teenage self couldn't have imagined. Deeper, richer, more complex, but only if you slow down enough to experience it. George Patterson described his breakthrough moment to me. His wife had gone to visit their daughter for a long weekend. He had the house completely to himself. No rush, no schedule. He decided to try something different. I gave myself permission to take as long as I wanted. 20 minutes, 30. I focused on breathing, on really feeling everything. I explored areas I'd never paid attention to. My chest, my inner thighs. That spot between my legs I didn't even know was sensitive. He paused, almost embarrassed. "Doc, I'm telling you, when I finally finished, it was like nothing I'd experienced since I was a kid. Full body, almost overwhelming. I literally had to lie down afterward." That's what happens when you give your nervous system time to fully engage. When you treat the experience as something to savor rather than complete. The third mistake is rushing. Treating self-pleasure like a task to check off instead of an experience to inhabit. Your body is capable of so much more when you slow down enough to discover it. Now, we're about to talk about mistake number 4, and this is the one that almost every man overlooks. It's also the one that has the most dramatic impact when you finally get it right. George Mitchell focused exclusively on his genitals. Hand on penis. Motion, release. Done. In his mind, that's where all sensation lived. That's where pleasure happened. He was ignoring about 90% of his body. Your skin is your largest organ. You have nerve endings distributed everywhere. Your inner thighs, your lower abdomen, your chest, especially around your nipples, your neck, the perineum, that space between your genitals and your anus, is packed with nerve networks that most men never even touch. When you focus only on genital stimulation, you're having a fraction of the experience available to you. George Patterson discovered this almost by accident too. He'd been watching a documentary about mindfulness and body awareness. It mentioned that people often disconnect from their physical selves, living entirely in their heads. He realized that described him perfectly. So he started experimenting with what he called body mapping. During his personal time, he'd spend the first 5 or 10 minutes just touching different areas. Not sexually, just curiously. Noticing what felt good, what made his breathing change, what made his skin come alive. "I found spots I didn't know existed," he told me. Running my fingers along my inner thighs, really slowly, created this anticipation that made everything more intense. Touching my chest, applying a little pressure, sent sensations I'd never noticed before. And when I finally touched my perineum with some massage oil, I almost couldn't believe what I'd been missing. This isn't about anything strange or uncomfortable. It's about recognizing that your body is a complete system, not just one part. When you engage your whole body, arousal builds differently. Pleasure deepens. The eventual release becomes more powerful because you've activated your entire nervous system, not just one isolated area. The fourth mistake, and this is the big one, is geographical limitation. Focusing only on your genitals while ignoring the hundreds of thousands of nerve endings distributed across your entire body. When you expand your awareness, you expand your capacity for pleasure exponentially. But even with all this knowledge, there's a practical issue that stops many men from experiencing what they're truly capable of. And it's so simple that most people don't even think about it. George Mitchell never used lubrication. Never even occurred to him. "I'm not some kid who needs training wheels," he'd thought. Real men don't need help. Except his skin had changed. At 67, his tissue wasn't as elastic as it used to be. Natural moisture had decreased. Every session created microscopic friction damage that accumulated over time, gradually reducing sensitivity. What used to feel good now felt rough, sometimes painful. He'd started avoiding it altogether. George Patterson's doctor had mentioned, almost offhandedly during a checkup, that quality lubricant could make a significant difference for older men. George was skeptical, but figured it was worth trying. It completely changed everything, he told me. Suddenly there was no friction, no discomfort. The sensation was smoother, more natural. It felt more like actual intimacy instead of just mechanical motion, and I could go longer without any irritation. He experimented with different types: water-based for easy cleanup, silicone-based for longer sessions. He found what worked for his body. It wasn't complicated. It wasn't embarrassing. It was just smart self-care. Your skin changes as you age. That's not weakness. That's biology. Using appropriate lubrication protects your tissue, enhances sensation, and makes the entire experience more comfortable and enjoyable. It's no different than using moisturizer on your face or conditioner in your hair. You're caring for your body with wisdom instead of stubbornness. The fifth mistake is avoiding lubrication out of misplaced pride. Your body has different needs now than it did decades ago. Meeting those needs isn't admitting defeat. It's demonstrating intelligence. Now we're getting into territory that's less physical and more psychological. And this next mistake might be the most damaging of all because it poisons everything else you try to do. George Mitchell carried something heavy that he'd never told anyone about. Even sitting in my office, speaking confidentially to a doctor, he could barely articulate it. He felt ashamed. He was 67 years old, and some part of him still believed that what he was doing was wrong. Dirty. Something that men his age shouldn't still want or need. He'd been raised in an era where sexuality was never discussed openly, where self-pleasure was treated as a shameful secret, where good men were supposed to outgrow such things. So even though he knew intellectually that masturbation was normal, even healthy, there was this emotional residue, this guilt that crept in afterward, this feeling that he should be better than this, stronger than this, past this. That shame affected everything. It made him rush. It made him hide. It made him unable to be present during the experience, because part of his mind was already judging him for having the experience, and it absolutely destroyed his ability to be intimate with his wife. Because if he felt ashamed about his own body, his own desires, how could he possibly be open and vulnerable with her? George Patterson had carried similar baggage for most of his life. The breakthrough came during a conversation with his adult son, who was going through therapy and learning about inherited beliefs. My son asked me where I'd learned that sexuality was shameful, George told me. I realized it came from my father, who probably learned it from his father. None of them had ever questioned it. They just passed it down like a genetic disease. George decided that pattern ended with him. He started reframing how he thought about self-pleasure. Not as indulgence, not as weakness, but as self-care, as maintenance, as a healthy part of being a complete human being. Once I let go of that shame, everything opened up, he said. I could be present. I could enjoy it without guilt. And that translated directly into my relationship with my wife. I could be open with her because I was finally at peace with myself. The sixth mistake is carrying inherited shame. Beliefs about sexuality that you absorbed decades ago without questioning them. Those beliefs don't serve you. They never did. Letting them go isn't just liberating. It's necessary for genuine well-being. And that brings us to the seventh and final mistake. The one that might actually surprise you the most. George Mitchell refused to consider any tools, devices, or adaptations. His reasoning was simple. I'm not disabled. I don't need help. But his grip strength had diminished with age. His joints were stiffer. His shoulders tired more quickly. What used to be effortless now required real physical effort that often cut his experience short or made it uncomfortable. He was choosing struggle over satisfaction because he equated asking for help with admitting defeat. George Patterson had a different perspective. He'd started using reading glasses at 50 without any shame. He wore supportive shoes because his feet needed them. He'd modified his golf grip because his arthritis required it. Why would I treat this any differently? He asked me. If there are tools designed to make things easier, more comfortable, more enjoyable, why wouldn't I use them? He'd researched devices designed specifically for older men. Ergonomic grips that reduced hand strain, textured sleeves that provided varied stimulation, gentle massaging tools for areas difficult to reach. It's not about replacing my own touch, he explained. It's about enhancing it, supporting my body's changing needs. And honestly, some of these things create sensations I couldn't produce on my own. He also discovered that many of these tools could be incorporated into intimacy with his wife, opening up entirely new dimensions to their shared experiences. The seventh mistake is refusing adaptive tools out of pride. Your body changes, your needs evolve. Using devices designed to support those changes isn't admitting weakness. It's demonstrating wisdom. Just as you wouldn't refuse eyeglasses or hearing aids, you shouldn't refuse tools that enhance your intimate well-being. Let me tell you how these stories concluded. George Mitchell came back to see me 6 months after our first conversation. He'd made no changes. The shame was too heavy, the pride too rigid, the patterns too deeply ingrained. His marriage had deteriorated further. His wife had suggested counseling, but he'd refused. He told me he was thinking about separate bedrooms. Maybe it's just easier this way, he said. He looked older than his age, tired, resigned, like he'd accepted that decline was inevitable, and there was nothing to be done about it. George Patterson I saw at a community event a year after our conversation. He pulled me aside, almost conspiratorially. "Doc, I need to tell you something. My wife and I just got back from a weekend away. No grandkids, no responsibilities, just us." He was grinning. We laughed together. We played together. We connected in ways we haven't in years, maybe decades. And it all started because I finally learned how to connect with myself first. He looked younger than his age, energized, present, like he'd discovered a secret that was transforming everything. Same starting point. 7 mistakes separating 2 completely different lives. Here's what I need you to understand. This isn't just about physical pleasure. It's not really about sex at all, not in the narrow way most people think about it. This is about whether you're going to spend your remaining decades feeling increasingly disconnected from your own body, or whether you're going to step into a stage of life where you're more integrated, more whole, more alive than you've ever been. Every single mistake we've discussed represents a choice to cling to outdated beliefs or embrace current understanding, a choice to repeat ineffective patterns or try something new, a choice to carry shame or release it, a choice to struggle alone or accept support. Men over 60 have been sold a lie. You've been told that aging means inevitable decline, that your sexuality has an expiration date, that you should be grateful for whatever scraps of function remain and stop wanting more. That's garbage. Your body at 60, 70, even 80 is capable of remarkable experiences. Different than at 30, yes, but not less, often more, deeper, richer. more connected to emotion, to meaning, to the full scope of human experience. But only if you're willing to challenge everything you thought you knew. Only if you're willing to make different choices than the ones that brought you to wherever you are right now. So here's my question for you. Which George are you going to be? Are you going to close this video, feel momentarily interested, then return to exactly what you've always done? Hoping somehow that the same actions will produce different results? Or are you going to actually implement something? Even just one thing? Even just experimenting with slowing down? Or trying lubrication? Or challenging one belief you've carried since adolescence? Because small changes compound. George Patterson didn't transform overnight. He made one adjustment, then another, then another. Each one built on the previous one. Within 6 months, his entire experience had shifted. Within a year, his entire life had shifted. That's available to you too. Right now. Today. Start with this. Tonight or tomorrow morning, whenever you next have privacy, try something different. Just one thing. Slow down deliberately. Touch somewhere you normally ignore. Use lubrication if you never have before. Whatever feels like the easiest first step. Notice what happens. Notice what you feel. Notice whether something shifts, even slightly. Then build from there. You don't need to overhaul everything at once. You just need to start challenging the patterns that aren't serving you anymore. This content is for general knowledge only. It does not replace evaluation by a qualified healthcare professional. If you have concerns or symptoms, please consult your specialist. And if you want support in that process, you know what to do. Subscribe to this channel, engage in the comments. Let me know which mistake resonated most with you. Share this with other men who need to hear it. Because guaranteed, you know someone who's struggling with exactly what we've discussed today. Your 60s, 70s, 80s, these can be the most sexually satisfying decades of your life if you approach them with wisdom instead of resignation. The capacity is there. The opportunity is there. The only question is whether you'll reach for it. I'm Dr. Charles Bennett. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'll see you in the next one.